All right, it is Monday morning. It is anything but a mellow one, and this morning we are going to be talking about let me be frank, some stuff that I don't want to talk about because this shit shouldn't be going down the way it is. Trump's war, Israel's will, and that's the problem. We're going to get into that quite a bit this morning. Of course, I've got Mario joining us, and good morning, Mario. How you holding up, brother?
I'm all right. Are you
And
telling
Mario,
me?
if you will lean just ever so slightly to your left, hey Cameron, say good morning.
Good morning.
I've got Cameron on the phone. He's currently he's got his hands busy. He can't come in front of the camera, but we've got him called in for some commentary, and let's see how this shakes out for us this morning. Take a quick peek.
Yes.
Who's in the chat? Fish and Golf has first blood. Sergeant Major, I see you. Good morning. Uncle Steve's with us. I see Megan's with us as well, and of course, last but not least in this commentary, Patrick, the brown man. Good morning, friend.
What is that? Is it like evolution of the gray man of like post-apocalyptic survival strategies? Like when just looking like a schlub nobody isn't good enough, cover yourself in feces, then people will definitely leave you alone. Makes sense. So are you Chris? Are you suggesting that you don't want to talk about this because your interest is a domestic America first policy and bombing Iran and getting involved in Israel's wars is not part of your agenda? Is that what you're suggesting?
Actually, let me take that a little bit further. I'd be totally comfortable with bombing the absolute dog shit out of Iran in the interest of furthering America's interests. But what I see right now is just like what happened in Ukraine, a foreign entity operating under the assumption that it has the full military support of the United States of America has decided that, like a shithead kid on a playground that's picking a fight with kids twice his size, that he can get away with it because his daddy can beat them up. And what we've done by striking Iran under these circumstances is we've sent a signal to every so-called ally of the United States. And let me be clear when I say this. When I say so-called ally, Mario's going to make this argument that it's unreasonable for us to consider Israel an ally because we get no benefit from Israel as an ally. But I want to push back on that a little bit. I want everybody to be very clear on this. Israel is not substantially different than any of our other allies in that they are a total cost with no benefit. We have not one ally, not one allied nation is allied with the United States who offers a net positive to the United States. We are the welfare state provision of the entire planet, and it's obnoxious. It's nauseating, and it is, believe it or not, the only thing that costs more than doling out welfare to the whole world is the domestic welfare state, whose cost since its inception under LBJ is roughly the same as the national debt. So I look at this situation, and what I see is Israel would not even have been saber rattling with Iran but for the presupposition that America would be willing to get involved on Israel's behalf. The same is true with what happened in Ukraine, right? Volodymyr Zelensky would not have been saber rattling at Russia and playing his little fuck games going back and forth. Maybe I'll join, maybe I won't, maybe I'll join, maybe I won't. Yeah. And I can only be so mad at Putin for invading Ukraine because I ain't gonna lie. Here's what you've got in Russia. Putin's looking over at Ukraine and saying, these guys are trying to, my next door neighbor is trying to move in people, undesirables. Take it domestically, take it to home. I'm looking next door and there's this house that's just sitting there empty for a while. Doesn't really have any value. And all of a sudden there's obviously a meth producer trying to move into the house next door to me. Well, I am probably going to call the police and tell the meth guy, look, I don't want you to make meth next door to my house. So I'm going to call the police and they're going to come and enforce the law, which in this case happens to be not my will directly, but congruent with it. And I have the unmitigated temerity to engage with you over a question of our borders between our two homes in my interest in you not engaging in behavior which is undesirable to me. And I have the gall to engage you in this instead of opening fire on you myself, because I have the full backing of a funded police force that will come and do that work for me. So it may be that Israel or Ukraine are perfectly correct, perfectly justified, perfectly morally centered in their interests as regards their interaction with the neighbor, with the unwanted neighbor, with the hostile neighbor. But they would not be starting a problem that is a global problem without the presupposition of the full faith and backing of the U.S. military. And so they have chosen to escalate because what they want is they want the FBI, the ATF, etc., to come over to the neighbor's house and shoot their fucking dogs.
Yep.
That's where we're at. That's why it frustrates me. That's why I'm not a fan of the maneuver. Now, if it were the case that I just hated Iran and wanted to see America bomb Iran, and Israel wasn't a factor here, I'd be totally comfortable with these strikes. And all other qualifiers aside, I am impressed with the strategic execution of what just happened. That was well done. It was sneaky. It was effective. But there are some significant geopolitical concerns in this particular engagement that don't just concern me, but they offend me. Because yes, I will absolutely wreck someone's shit. I will hit a man with a cigarette machine. I don't give a shit. But I'm not going to do it and take the associated risks on behalf of someone else from whom I receive no benefit for my trust and engagement.
And who acts in poor faith.
And who acts in poor faith.
So
like I said, my biggest, Mario and I clash a little bit on this sometimes. And I think the thing that we clash on is you're a little hung up on the Israel question. And I'm arguing that Israel is every bit as bad as Mario says it is. But staying hung up on Israel ignores the fact that this is also true of every other ally we have. The UK, all of NATO and the UN are just the America's fucking parasites club. You know, we used to criticize them for being the He-Man America Haters Club, but let's not forget, they are not just hateful people that detest us and would like to see our empire fall. They're parasites. They're parasites at a level that I would almost like to see the United States fall just so that these other whores can starve to death.
To revitalize and to save our country, what we have to do, and when you talk about these alliances, we have to flush away the world order that was established after 1991. When the USSR fell, the new globalist world order was a world in which basically history was supposed to have ended, all right? Violent conflict allegedly had ended. And now we're entering into a new paradigm of globalist free movement of capital, free movement of people. And the United States was going to be the underwriter of that entire program as the sole superpower remaining, okay? United States is basically going to play the banker in the new game of Monopoly that we started, okay, worldwide. So, and through those alliances, like you said, we have bad faith alliances. What's up?
Sergeant Major's comment.
Oh, shit. Anyway, so
I can't see it because Cameron's special guest logo is in the way.
So the reason these alliances we have with our other alleged allies are in bad faith is because it's all based on that presupposition of U.S. financed, U.S. backed globalism that simply must expire. Okay, that model has failed. So we have to use Kissinger's terms, we have to de-link, decouple from the world, essentially the world paradigm that we created. All right, and until that happens, these alliances that we have with our allies, it's going to remain broken. Okay, it's going to remain a unfair transactional relationship so long as we maintain this world order. Okay, and that's what Davos, that's what the G7, that's what Bilderberg Group, Trilateral Commission, that's what they're all about, is propping up this failed world order because it serves them. Because it was made to serve them. Okay. So, Cameron, did you want to get something in there? I know you're trying to say something.
I want Cameron to get something in there real quick. There's a deep dive we need to do. All the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg, all that. These are organizations which originally existed to create this New World Order thing, and we need to do a deep dive and discuss those. In the context that what has happened is they did successfully create the New World Order. Like they actually installed the mechanisms that they sought to install. And where we're at now is they still exist. And like Mario was alluded to there, those controller entities still exist. The New World Order that they wanted to create was put in place in the early 90s. And where we're at now is we're dealing with the consequences and repercussions of narcissists who absolutely failed. We think the world would look great if it worked this way, and then we learned, oh, that's right, communism fails always.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in. Hopefully, I sound good. Hi, everybody. Okay, so
hey.
I think there's a couple of things that are important to bring into context. The first one is I'm concerned that everybody's reflexive pushback on this is just that it is reflexive pushback, because we've been burned by the NWO so many times that we're so used to seeing a spook around every corner and a government plot that sounds like Alex Jones territory, and then Alex Jones ends up being right. And so, here we are. Oh, God, we're actually going to have a war on behalf of Israel. This is like the motherlode of Alex Jones territory type stuff. But, sometimes when a little boy cries wolf, there's actually a wolf. And I think in this particular situation, like 5 years ago, on air with Rush Limbaugh, Donald Trump dared Iran to fuck around and even dropped an F-bomb live on air. So when I look at it in that kind of a context,
with
especially given the fact that I didn't hear you, Mario. I'm sorry.
With a country we were already at war with. Okay, it wasn't starting a new war. It was just, anyway. Continue. Sorry.
Well, but even that. At what point do you say start a war? Like when somebody funds a bunch of terror groups that have no problem, not just with us. Like those terror groups attack everybody on Iran's behalf, and then Iran gets to say, "Oh, who wasn't me? What you talking about? We're not Hezbollah," and we all know it's a lie. So when you couple all those things together, especially when you look at the fact that Donald Trump has expressly threatened Iran before in the past, during his first administration and while he was running for re-election for his second term, none of this comes as a surprise to me. And I'm even going to go so far as to say good, because why do you build a nuclear facility 300 feet inside of a mountain? Why do you enrich past?
Well, you do it because when Iraq built their nuclear facilities on the ground, we obliterated them. You build it under the mountain because America has already shown you.
Because
hey,
America
we'll
might
burn
bomb
your shit
you.
to the ground.
That's why you do it.
Yeah, well, we don't burn, but we don't do it to other countries. We only do it to the ones that have a specific interest in maybe they're posturing, or maybe they intend to use the weapons of mass destruction, but it doesn't matter. As soon as you say, oh yeah, we're totally going to do this weapon of mass destruction thing, I would tend to take somebody seriously. And if you're going to enrich past 25%, well, why would you do that unless you're trying to at least threaten as though you're going to build one of these bombs? So that's all. Just there's actually an entirely legitimate reason for doing these strikes. I think we're just all so fatigued with the process from top to bottom that A, the possibility that this is legitimate, and B, the fact that there's actually a history here directly from Trump that he said he would do this. I think that perspective has been lost because of how bad we've all been burned. And I'm going to go back on mute now.
So let me say the most generous and positive spin I can put on striking Iran right now is, like Mario mentioned, when the Donald dropped the FAFO on Limbaugh, which, by the way, covering that story was one of our biggest episodes for a long time. Just Trump drops the F-bomb on Limbaugh was a great moment. But we were already engaged at that point. This is the starting of a new war, unless, and here's, like I said, this is the most generous, optimistic, positive spin I can possibly put on this. Iran, major state sponsor of terror. You could potentially argue that what we've just seen is that Iran is fighting multiple proxy wars against the United States, and that's true. You got the Houthi rebels, you got all kind of shit. Iran running behind the scenes, funding groups with which America is currently engaged, not in war, not in officially declared war, because we've elected a bunch of cowards, but in military activities, military security maneuvers to secure trade routes, et cetera, and Israel saber rattling gave us an excuse for a little international political cover to become involved. In which case, what we have is better than what the doomsayers will say as far as the Israelis running American foreign policy, but it doesn't change the fact of what I was describing earlier, that Israel would not have even been saber rattling with Iran if it were not for their belief, which rightly so. And I mean, they're justified in their belief because it has now proved to be the case. They base their saber rattling on the expectation, on the belief that America will step in on their behalf. And my position on this is quite simply, there would not have been a conflict here or in Ukraine if it hadn't been for a child stomping on somebody's toes and screaming, "My daddy can whoop your ass."
Yeah, I think Ukraine could use some regime change. So
I don't know that I agree with that assessment, though. We don't have the president's children in bed with the Ukrainians doing jobs they're clearly and obviously not qualified for.
We've got him in bed with Shamad Lubavitch, literally.
No, but Cameron, we do have nearly half of not half. We have a significant number of political appointees and even elected officials who have an Israeli passport and dual citizenship there. The involvement, that entanglement, that incestuous entanglement is very deep. That's not some tinfoil hat shit. That's just straight stats.
It's a very small minority. of Congress that does not take some money from AIPAC for re-election. Okay, it is
regardless of party.
Yeah, regardless of party. Of course, what they're going to play, they have to play both sides. Okay, they learned that lesson during the when the neocon movement started after Truman. Anyway, so Cameron, just real quick, it's not a reflexive pushback. It's actually a principled pushback. Okay, for the same reason you won't post your R is the same reason we don't accept the we don't accept. I had to. I won't mention it again, but it's the same reason. The same reason why we're opposed to these Iranian strikes. Okay, Trump ran on not starting new Middle Eastern wars. He ran on basically, well, but if I was president, this shit would never happen, right? Oh, sure, like, right? Really, Trump? I ran on. We're going to finish this peace process in the Ukraine, right? And it's only accelerating. So
and you've got the past month of guys like me and Mario and a bunch of other conservative commentators saying, listen, Donald, we get it. BB wants you to go and find out something for him because he's doing all this fucking around. And listen, Donnie, please don't do it. Don't let BB pull your dick and get you in his trouble.
Donnie took $100 million for his re-election campaign, and now he's got to pay that bill. Okay, that's what's going on. Now, Cam, you also suggest that we would we would bomb any country. No, that's not the case. We only seem to do this to the enemies of Israel. All right, for like Pakistan has a nuclear weapon. Are we engaged, or are we seeking regime change there? Okay, are we threatening their nuclear program?
No, but Pakistan doesn't say death to America either.
Of course they do.
Yes, they do.
It's not in their chart.
No, they absolutely do. Plus, they also were housing Osama bin Laden for a decade. Okay,
yeah, Cameron, you clearly just have not killed enough Pakistanis.
The divide between Waziristan, which is northern Pakistan, and Afghanistan there is no border there. Okay, it's the same people. The Pakistan on its side of the border was basically a recruiting and training ground and replenishment zone for the actual Taliban. Okay, to fight us in Afghanistan. Okay.
Yeah, Chris, the Afghan-Pakistan border is basically just an imaginary line where we drop all our JDAMs.
That's right. On one side, it's Pashtun people. On the other side, it's Pashtun people. It's the same thing. Okay. Now, same thing with North Korea.
And you know the old adage, right, Mario?
What?
When a Pashtun man wants to be with a woman, his first choice is a Pashtun man.
I know about the Bachabazi thing, which is disturbing. But anyway, so let's take North Korea.
The Chai boy.
Yeah, the Chai boy thing. Then we have North Korea, also a nuclear power. Are we serious about regime change there? No, we're not. We're not. That's just going to remain geopolitical backwater until I guess there's nothing else to target our weapons at. So maybe we just need to come to grips with the fact that the less stable the world is, okay, the less geopolitical stability you have, the more certain states are going to seek a nuclear weapon. Okay, and when they see that Israel or the United States will bomb your ass if you don't play the game according to their rules, then that's going to accelerate the quest for a nuclear weapon. Perhaps, do you think Iran is more likely or less likely to want to finally just say, fuck it, we're not even going to hide it anymore, complete the program, build a rudimentary bomb and test it, and we'll just play that India-Pakistan gambit and see how the world reacts, okay? They might as well, okay? We may have to consider that nuclear weapons are simply going to be the Second Amendment for nation states at this point going forward, okay? Because this didn't convince Iran not to build a weapon. They know that they cannot be invaded by land, all right? Unless it was a four nation army going in all at once. Look at the place on a map. It literally looks like a fortress. It's mountains everywhere.
No, it didn't convince them, but it stopped them. There was no convincing them, but there was stopping them.
We don't know that it stopped.
We don't know that. We don't know that. So the U.S. is saying that, yes, we've utterly obliterated the Fardo nuclear facility, which is that deep underground bunker, right? And Iran is saying that, no, actually, you really only did surface level damage. Plus, we did give the Iranians advance notice that we were going to hit those sites. You may have missed that over the weekend, but we told them in advance we were going to blow their shit up because the United States is at least courteous like that.
And
so they probably, yeah.
I want to, Alex has a good comment here. He says, we tolerate the PACs because they have nukes. That wasn't a mistake we could make with Iran. I would hope that this leads to another Iranian revolution. Okay. Yes.
Trump would agree.
And I would too. And here's the thing. I would say that to the extent that you're correct, Alex, and I am saying that you are, letting the PACs have nukes so that they can force us to tolerate them was also a mistake. Let me go back to my analogy from earlier. You're an awful an affluent white liberal woman, an affluent white female liberal, and Trinidad Aragua has just taken command and control of the apartment complex that is in your neighborhood, right? It's right there next to the Trader Joe's. You can't miss it. And you're going to keep going on TikTok and screaming about how no person can be illegal on stolen land. And you're going to shut your mouth and walk very, very quietly and try not to make eye contact when you walk by the apartment building full of TDA on your way to your Trader Joe's to get your whatever organic bullshit. Precisely because you, in your ignorance, have allowed a dangerous neighbor to become dangerously armed and have not taken the measures to arm yourself against that threat. Now, you could respect the rights and honorable intentions of that neighbor and not complain when they begin to arm themselves. But if you do that without also arming yourself, you're skipping the verify part of trust but verify. I've known plenty of people who were dangerous, but they were dangerous to a certain type of person. I was not that certain type of person. You always hear, well, they came for the communists and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. They came for the Jews and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. There is a point where they came for the whatever it is that I am, and there was no one left to help because I didn't speak up for those other people. Sometimes those other people are not the sort of people you want to come to help. And maybe the right answer was to arm yourself and be prepared to be responsible. Be prepared to do what is necessary. So,
look, I was just going to say, to piggyback off your. Hello, is it my fault?
No, you're just apparently it got noisy behind you.
Yes, unfortunately, it does that. I'm out running my own small business, but I love you guys and I miss you, so here I am. But no, to piggyback off your analogy, I would say that Iran is Trinidad Aragua in this situation. Pakistanis say death to America, but Iran, as a matter of official stated policy, says death to America. And they do it by doing things like funding proxies, funding Hezbollah, for example. Pakistan, for better or for worse, is smart enough to at least play the game. A large part of the Middle Eastern countries are at least smart enough to play the game. I recognize that they all hate us and they all look down their nose at us. I'm clear on that, but Iran is the only one deliberately pushing certain buttons. Palestinians.
Well, in fairness, they don't really look down their noses at us. I mean, these people are short.
Right. Right. Fair enough.
I mean, you do know why they hate us, though, right?
Yeah, because we're awesome.
We caused regime change like twice in their country prior to the Islamic Revolution. We stole their money, and the British attacked them. British and American forces attacked them during World War II because they were selling oil to the
so we out-Muslimed the Muslims?
We out-Muslim the Muslims. I don't give a fuck about Muslims. Okay, I'm just talking about the geopolitics of it. I mean, we do.
Yeah, no, we played their game better than they did. They screwed each other over for the last 1,000 years, and we said, "Hey, we want a piece of that action. You guys are terrible at it," and we won. So
we played our game. We played our game for them. We set up the board game in front of them and said, "You're going to play our game." Well, we don't want to play our game. Okay, we'll just control your turns for you. Okay, when you want to start playing, let me know. That's what we did. Okay. Now
I gotta take a piss. I gotta take a piss. Mario, handle my hand for me. I'll be right back.
Look, we're talking about the same people that historically were the cause of the Crusades. The popular narrative,
the Persians, Shia Islam had nothing to do with the Crusades. That's entirely Sunni Islam.
No. Yes, I know that there are different sects of Islam, but I'm talking about the region of the world.
Persia is Central Asia, not the Middle East.
Hey, real quick, Cameron. I know you can't see the chat. I just want to let you know that there's this cat who calls himself Crisp, who says he agrees with the guest calling.
Oh, well, that's. I'm gonna take that as a compliment.
Chris probably watches Fox News. All right. Let's take a look here.
Well, I don't watch Fox News. I'm okay with the guys with the nuclear program getting the shit kicked out of them. Like we can.
See,
we can.
Hang on.
We have it under good authority that 50% of your media consumed is in fact just Melanie Mack's hot takes. Okay, we know the truth, Cameron. Okay.
So, but that right there, Cameron, what you just said, I'm totally okay with. Say it again, so I don't misquote you. Totally okay with.
I'm okay with them getting. I'm okay with them getting the shit kicked out of them. Absolutely.
Okay. Here's the problem. I am also very okay with the enemies of the United States getting the shit kicked out of them. The problem arises where. Even if we have mutual enemies, even if America and Israel legitimately have combined mutual interest and mutual antagonists, what we're looking at here is the U.S. taking a specific, directed, kinetic foreign policy maneuver only because another foreign entity directed it to happen. Now, I'm not even saying that, Bibi and Israel have so much compromise or have spent so much money on Donald Trump that he's totally beholden to them. They even if let's assume for a moment for the sake of this argument, so that I can make this point especially clear. Let's assume for a moment that Donald Trump had taken no money from a major Jewish donor. The $100 million that Mario was talking about doesn't exist, et cetera, et cetera. We're still in a position where we find ourselves that Israel is operating under the assumption that the U.S. will back them because we're strategic allies on paper, and is using that assumption and going and starting a war. Right. So it's one thing to say, hey, Israel, they're a bunch of good guys and we wish the best for them. I hope they handle their business. They live a great life. They do everything well. Right. And then somebody attacks them and makes a major strike on them. Right. You go back to the October 7th thing, I'd have been totally comfortable there if we had just absolutely carpet bombed the Gaza Strip after that attack, to make the clear point, not that Israel has our support, but that that was a great moment for us to say F around and find out. Right? That was a solid moment to say, look, dropping paratrooping psychopaths on a music festival and raping and murdering 1,000+ people is just not cool. We don't care where you do it, and you can eat shit and die over that, right? That was an enemy aggressing on an ally. Forget the indisputable fact that Israel is a useless ally. They are an ally. You got an attack, done. Good. But with the Iran situation, what you have is Israel choosing our battles for us and entering into them without a substantial pretext that coincides with our mutual interest. Israel started this fight and now expects us to come and help them finish it.
Well,
Okay,
this is the difference. It's the difference between, you got kids in high school. It's the difference between your buddy getting jumped by the football team and you stepping in to make sure he doesn't get the shit kicked out of him, versus your buddy running out on the field in the middle of the game and kicking the quarterback in the nuts and expecting that you'll come and help him out. Now, the problem there is that he wouldn't have done it to begin with if he didn't believe that he had Big Daddy to come and spank the bad guys for him.
I don't want to get up.
That's my biggest problem with this, is the entire impetus for Israel's aggression is the expectation that we will do their work for them.
See, now I understand where our fundamental difference is. I don't think Israel started this. I think Iran started this.
Oh, well, you're wrong then.
No, I'm not wrong. Iran started this 20 fucking years ago because they even worked out a treaty with Obama. This is how far back this goes. We're talking about multiple administrations ago. They're not living up to their end of a nuclear treaty. But they started this. They've had off-ramp after off-ramp after off-ramp after off-ramp. And like that's where you and I disagree. I now entirely understand why we disagree fundamentally on this.
Yeah. Off ramps where we set up stanchions and close the exit, right? Look, could we, just a moment, okay? There's some misunderstanding here. I don't want to Gaza, Hamas, real quick, okay? 2 key points here. Israel funded Hamas for years. Hamas is a product of Israel. Israel created Hamas because it would make give the Palestinians optics challenges. Okay, so Israel wanted to make sure that the two-party solution, the two-state solution, failed. Okay, that because they don't want to give up any land. So Hamas was created. They financed it because it would ruin the political process. Israel was happy when the Gaza Strip was taken over politically by Hamas. All right. Second, October 7th attack, Israel exacerbated the casualties on the ground by using the Hannibal Directive and going in and just killing everyone willy-nilly and then attributing all of the friendly fire to Hamas. Okay. Understand that is true. I'm not making this shit up. Back to Iran. All right. Be Controversial says, is Iran also not responsible for this situation by not agreeing to negotiations, knowing that we weren't going to allow them to? Okay, this gets us back to where we were before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, obviously there's, of course, they bear some responsibility. But then again,
yeah,
really just
Iran is absolutely not innocent in this. Iran are bad actors.
They're doing what's in their interest, or what they feel is in their interest. Okay, and let's be honest. I mean, Iran has already lost so much in the last few years, in the last 2 years, really, that I mean, yeah, if you were pushing for regime change, I guess now would be the time. Okay, they lost in Lebanon. Okay, utterly ruined. Their command and control destroyed. They've been getting targeted strikes from Israel for 2 years now, wiping out top members of the IRGC. And other war material specializing officials. Syria is gone. Okay, they propped up the Assad regime because it extended their Shia influence, because Assad family comes from the Alawiti tribe. Okay, which are like that one rare Shia Muslim group within Syria. So basically, the Shia crescent that extended from Iran through Syria to Lebanon has effectively been destroyed. They still hold significant political influence in the eastern half of Iraq. Okay, because that's where that's the Shia dominated area, but they don't quite have that projection that they had before. Okay, now what do they have on the table still? Probably the most radical move they can make right now would be closing the Straits of Hormuz. Okay, which would be a global economic disaster. So they're probably going to do it, or try to do it in some capacity.
I don't think they're going to close.
It's questionable.
I don't think they're going to close it, because that would be a sufficient casus belli for the U.S. to get much more involved.
It would also piss off all of Asia.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you have all of Asia on your ass, because Asia, outside of Indonesia, Asia doesn't really have major oil production. Okay. Asia is more dependent on Middle Eastern oil than we are. So, but yeah, would be casus belli. Iran doesn't seem to be responding much in any capacity other than just dropping bombs on Israel right now.
There was this big fat ass beetle that just flew in the door of the studio right here, and it was big enough that the flash of motion to the left caught my eye, and I looked over, and just as I looked over and was about to step on it, chicken flew in and grabbed it and flew away from me.
Fucking chicken.
I love this life. I love living out here.
You like your
Chickens
tiny
are miniature dinosaurs that taste good.
They really are, and they shit bonus food.
Do your tiny retarded raptors amuse you? Yes.
Yes, and now they're fighting over the fat ass beetle. This is amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's bring it back for a moment here, right? Talking about our involvement in this, and yes, I 100% agree with you, Chris. My main issue with this is that it appears we do not have control over the final say in our foreign policy. All right. This is Israel. Israel started this current conflagration. All right. We did not have to get involved. We could have chastened Israel. We could have basically pulled the leash on them a little bit and just give them a tug. Okay. Let them know, like, hey, knock it off. Knock it off. You've already done catastrophic damage in Gaza. Okay. Creating a humanitarian crisis, if you care about such things. And now you're moving in. Now you basically Pearl Harbored Iran. All right. And we decided to join you at the last minute, and it's like, I had a little bit of hope when Trump said that, hey, 2 more weeks, you know what I mean? We're going to give him 2 weeks and see if we can come up with a diplomatic solution. Turned out that meant we're moving in as good Shabbos goys on Saturday to do the job when they can't. Anyway, oh fuck, what was I saying?
In all seriousness, how do we know that didn't happen entirely in reverse?
What?
What? Clarify.
Okay. Instead of we're being jerked around, we actually did the jerking. What if we said, hey, you guys want the excuse to bomb? Here's how it goes. You guys are going to be the villains. You're going to have to throw the first punch, so to speak. And then we're going to have no choice but to come in and support you. And then we're going to do 1 limited strike, maybe 2, and then we're going to back out. You guys, you get what you want, but you have to take all the heat.
So good cop, bad cop. U.S. Israel, good cop, bad cop. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
good cop, bad cop. Yes, exactly.
That's similar to how it happened, because of course the B-2 bombers that struck Iran, um, they were they were en route for 18 hours before they dropped the bombs, and over the 36 hours preceding, Israel was taking out strategic air defense systems in Iran to kind of clear the path for the U.S. to make that strike. So there was absolutely some behind the scenes negotiation that was kept tight to the vest before all this went down over the weekend, between the U.S. and Israel. But that doesn't change any of what I was explaining about Israel saber rattling only because they have the backing.
All right. So I remember what I wanted to say. So I don't like where this is accelerating to. So Trump is like, no new Middle Eastern wars, right? Second is like, yeah, we want to give diplomacy a chance, and don't misunderstand it. When we gave Iran 60 days, okay, to make peace, that was Israel giving us 60 days to make peace with Iran, or they were going to go in unilaterally. Okay. Now, what do we have? What's the latest thing Trump has tweeted as he rapidly degrades from MAGA, America First, into full-throated John Bolton neocon? Now he's hinting at regime change. Okay, this is accelerating. It's accelerating rapidly, and I swear to God, if there's one thing that you should have learned, okay, even if you were a complete ignoramus, okay, if there's one thing you should have learned since 9/11, is that regime change in the Middle East does not benefit anyone, well, other than Israel, but regime change in the Middle East does not benefit us. Okay, you take a society where effectively due to geographic, historical, and ethnogenic reasons, these people require heavy-handed leadership. Okay, they don't function well with democracy. All right.
Yeah, and let's be fair. Regime change. When you say regime change doesn't work, a more correct statement would be that you cannot regime change these people into representative republicanism or democratic systems. You can, and inevitably will, no matter how you expect the operation to go, regime change them into another totalitarian theocratic dictatorship. Because if you give them the ability to vote for it, and we've seen this time and time again, every time they're offered the ability to vote for a representative form of government, they vote for a totalitarian theocracy. Every time, without exception.
Correct. So look at Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. Prime example. Like a major bomb was diffused in toppling the Muslim Brotherhood there. Okay, that was one example of correct regime change. Probably the only one in recent memory in the Middle East. Now, people think that the Iranian regime, the Ayatollah, and the Supreme Council, are they rational actors? Well, I think we can obviously say that yes, they are. Okay, because look at what's happening right now. Has Iran activated terror cells worldwide? Okay, are we getting terrorist attacks in European countries in America? Right? No, we're getting basically tit for tat escalation with Israel and basically playing missile wars. Right, launching missiles at each other. The Straits of Hormuz has not been closed. There have not been bombed. They have not bombed critical Gulf Arab infrastructure. Okay, to increase the price of oil. There's all kinds of crazy things that they could be doing to accelerate the situation, but they are in fact not doing it. They are holding their cards if they have a hand left. That is okay, and they might not, and hoping for some sort of diplomatic solution. At least that's what their foreign minister is saying, who's making the rounds throughout in NATO right now. But yeah, I think Iran would like this to stop. I don't think this benefits the Iranian regime. I don't think this is radicalizing the Iranian public in furtherance of the Islamic Revolution. They want this to stop. Okay, and now we're suggesting regime change, which will, no doubt, if successful, allow the worst and most irrational forces within Iranian society to take power. So if you want a total rogue state, if you want a dirty bomb, if you want economic terrorism in the Persian Gulf, then yeah, by all means, go ahead and flip that regime. Okay, see what happens. We saw what happened in Syria. Okay, Syria is toppled. Okay, what do you get? Islamic horde armies that persecute any religious or ethnic minority within their realm. Okay, and a refugee crisis to Israel. We topple Libya. What do we get? Well, we had a stable country, a major oil producer, and was kind of like the lodestar of Africa itself, as far as decoupling itself from the Western world and creating its own economy, creating its own currency. Right? Gaddafi was revolutionary in that regards. Okay, he's gone. What do we get? Slave markets, constant civil war, and refugee crisis to Europe. Okay, we topple Iraq. What did we get? We created basically a three-state no man's land between the Kurds, the Shia, and the Sunni. All right, permanent political instability, which is perfect for Israel. Okay, that's exactly what they want there. And a and a 7-year war that cost us 5,000 soldiers and countless wounded, either psychologically or physically. Right? What do we get in Lebanon? All right, refugee crisis. This is before all of this. Refugee crisis in Lebanon. Okay, the toppling of a Christian government, the toppling of like a Christian nation. Okay, just basically subverted into radical Shia Islam. Okay, and permanent war with Israel. Why is that? Well, a lot of it's because of the refugee crisis that Israel created in the early founding days, in its early founding days. Okay, friggin' Israel, like, gotta understand, it is a terrorist state. I can explain. Israel is a terrorist state. Israel was founded by terrorism. Israel was founded in 1948. In the years preceding that, 1946, 1947, Jewish terrorist group, particularly Irgun, was operating to try to basically to kill British soldiers. Okay, to bomb the British, to get the British to relinquish the British mandate that they had over the region following World War II. All right, they bombed King David Hotel. They would brutally murder British soldiers and then plant grenades underneath them, so that when the British came to investigate and recover their bodies, they would get blown up as well. They bombed. The British at one point tried to just start deporting all the Jews who were coming to Israel. All right, because the Zionists put out the call like, "Hey, everybody get to Tel Aviv. Okay, we're going to make this Zionist dream a reality." It was getting out of control. The British weren't able to deal with the newly arriving Jews, okay, and the Palestinians who were on site. Tensions were getting out of hand. The British are in charge. They tried to deport a certain number of Jewish refugees that had showed up, and what did Irgun do? Okay, what did Menachem Begin, all right, the Prime Minister of Israel, the future Prime Minister of Israel, do? He blew up a ship, killing like 200 something Jews, because it was better to kill them and make them martyrs than to let them be deported. All right. The Jews committed horrific massacres prior to and after the establishment in 1948 of the Jewish state, going door to door in villages, slaughtering people, running people off of their land. Okay. And yeah, committing terrorism. The Nakba. You probably heard of the Nakba, which was the wholesale slaughter and deportation of all the Palestinian people surrounding Tel Aviv, okay, up to Haifa. So
yeah, look,
Israel's committed
interesting.
terrible war crimes. All right, in the
Yeah,
its and it hasn't really stopped since then. And they've been getting away with this shit since 1948 because we've had their backing since 1948. So if you want to ask me how long has Israel been our problem, always, from its very inception, Israel has been our problem.
okay, look, You know what? Just for the sake of argument, I will 100% accept your premise that Israel is our problem, and they are in fact our problem. So I'll just accept it as fact. None of that gives me a compelling reason for Iran to enrich nuclear material to 60%. Like I don't. Well, Israel's a terrorist nation. Oh, okay, fine. Israel's a terrorist nation. So we should tolerate Iran being a terrorist nation? I don't follow that rationale at all. Not a bit. There's one set of bad guys over here. We put up with their shit. There's another set of bad guys over there. And because we put up with bad guy group A, we're not allowed to deal with bad guy group B. Like I don't buy that a bit. It's well, honestly, kind of what I hear is, well, there's no point in prosecuting this voter fraud over here because it won't make any difference.
No, that analogy doesn't work because
let me rephrase.
Hang on, Mario. Hang on. When you with the voter fraud thing, you're talking about ignoring all the criminals committing a particular crime. With the Israel versus Iran, everybody's a bad actor argument. You have a very different dynamic because the individual voter fraudsters aren't killing each other off. You see, if we ignore voter fraud, it continues to happen. If we ignore two sets of bad actors killing each other off, eventually they go away.
Yeah, but do they go away before or after they nuke each other? Because I got to tell you, I don't want to live in the world where they nuke each other. I'm okay with that being my position.
You know, that's a fair position. That is a fair position. I don't mind living in a world where either of those states wipes the other one out.
Nukes aren't a big deal. We've dropped them. It's okay. Get over it.
We airbursted them. That's right. We dropped them, and in fact, once we started nuking Japan, we nuked Japan until we ran out of nukes. The only reason we didn't drop a third nuke on them before they surrendered is we didn't have the bomb ready yet. Once nukes start flying, they don't stop.
I was joking there a little bit. Anyway,
I know. I was just piggybacking off the joke.
You've been outside. You've been outside of the group too long, Cameron. You're losing touch. Yeah. Anyway, let's read some of these comments here. Anyone? Oh man, Sergeant Major is a Cameron fan. It's not good, Sergeant Major. You need to look.
I think he's just trolling you, Mario.
Here's, how about this? Okay, just
I can't see the comments.
I stepped out on the patio.
Please.
Oh,
I can't see the comments, please. What's the
Sergeant Major say? Sergeant, the last thing posted here in the chat was Sergeant Major saying Cameron is still right about everything. Okay, so apparently you are you're the golden child of the three of us here. All right, in his eyes. Anyway, I walk out Saturday night, right after we did our little did our show that got interrupted by potential World War III. I step out on the patio, and what do I hear? I hear like Mark Levine, like Fox News psychopath Mark Levine, screaming at the top of his lungs at my parents' generation, demanding war from them. All right, that really, I found that very, very unsettling. The push for there. It's the same damn playbook, okay, that we saw in 2003, and that ended in disaster and the ramp up to the Iraq War. A very costly war where in the end the United States really didn't secure any strategic objectives for itself. All right, it didn't increase the peace and security for the United States in any way. All it did was remove a key player from the equation on behalf of Israel. Okay, that's all that war did, and I see the exact same thing. I see the exact same thing happening again. When John Bolton starts tweeting like how great a job President Trump is doing, that's when you should be concerned. All right. And like I said, if this goes all the way to regime change, then you have sacrificed a known undesirable situation for an unknown undesirable situation. Okay. You are opening a Pandora's box. Okay. You're letting the genie out of the bottle, and you cannot put it back in if you do this. So how about you stick with the devil you know? I mean, look, we blew up their nuclear site, right? That's what Trump said. That's what the Pentagon's saying. We utterly annihilated it. So I guess they don't have a nuclear program anymore. So why do we need regime change now? Huh?
Right. And
I'm not saying that we
hang on.
need regime
Because Israel wants regime change. That's why.
Let's stick with that for a minute. Let's assume, let's give the Donald and the American IC intelligence community and national reporting benefit of the doubt that they may or may not deserve. In fact, I would lean against deserve at this juncture. But let's assume for a moment that the Donald is telling the truth and Iran is lying, that their nuclear program has been entirely obliterated. If we stop here and tell Israel, listen, this is it. We had an arguable mutual interest in preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon, and we have done that. We're done.
Yep.
You do not have our support to engage in further military conflict. If you want to fight Iran, that's on you. If that's what you want to do, you do it. We have achieved a significant strategic objective, assuming that their nuclear development capability has in fact been destroyed, which I'd be totally comfortable with. Because there's the conversation about, well, they're not enriching it all the way to weapons grade. No, but the report we got from Tulsi was they're not quite to weapons grade, but they're above what is necessary for civilian grade. And there's a good argument there that America has a strategic interest in preventing Iran from basically producing dirty bombs for the terrorist organizations for which they are a state sponsor. We stop right there and be very clear in signaling, listen, Israel, Ukraine, everybody else, shut the fuck up. You don't get to pull our triggers for us. Then I'm good with the whole thing. We stop right there and go that route. I'm in.
Given what's already happened, going forward, yes, that is the best possible outcome. I would agree with that, Chris.
That doesn't mean I'm especially optimistic that I see it going that way, but that is the correct win condition.
I feels you. TPS Report Live says, in regards to regime change, or you end up with a free Iran and a much more stable Middle East. Not completely stable, but better.
No, there's no such thing as a free Iran. We covered that already. You can't regime change. You can't regime change these people out of totalitarian theocracy.
Yeah, that's some very wishful thinking. Okay, and the track record is not in your favor. So, I say no. Ollie North the shit out of this.
Sergeant Major says Israel is better off without regime change because the big bad wolf is good for business.
Holy shit. Maybe TPS is right. We Ollie North the shit out of this. We need to make secret deals with Iran, okay? Where we give them money, okay, in exchange for weapons, okay, or we sell them weapons in exchange for money that we then backdoor into Central America to kill communists in South America.
You had me.
It's fucking brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant, TPS.
Because let me take this opportunity.
We're going to buy peace. We're going to pay for peace with the Iranians and kill communists in our hemisphere. Thank you, TPS Report.
Yeah, let me just a friendly reminder to everyone. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, members of the Communist Party or Communist Action or Communist Front organizations used in this subchapter, the phrase unlawful employment practice shall not be deemed to include any action or measure taken by any employer or labor organization, joint labor management committee, or employment agency with respect to an individual who is a member of the Communist Party of the United States or of any other organization required to register as a Communist Action or Communist Front organization by final order of the Subversive Activities Control Board pursuant to the Subversive Activities Control Act of 1950. And I think we need to break open the Subversive Controls Act of 1950, and we need to start examining certain organizations, communities, groups, etc., to include mosques and temples and everybody. Hey, are you a communist sympathizer? For example, the Democrat Party, very much communist sympathizers. If you're a Democrat, if you're a registered Democrat, if you've ever voted Democrat, if you continue to vote Democrat, I think you should be required to register as a member of the Communist Party, because that's what you are. And like Mario just mentioned, if there's a route where we can Ollie North the shit out of this and kill a bunch of communists, I read that excerpt from the Civil Rights Act to remind the American people that even when the Democrats were voting their asses off to make sure that blacks never got any rights, they still had not been sufficiently infiltrated like they are today to disagree with the Republicans when we all, in one big, beautiful voice, said, say it with me now, Mario, communists aren't people. Communists don't get human rights because they're not human.
I forgot the name of him, but there was a Polish freedom fighter during the Soviet era who basically led partisan campaign against Soviet troops, right? And he was asked in an interview how it feels to have killed hundreds of people, and he said, "I've never killed it. I've never killed people. I've only killed communists."
Yes.
Anyway, I think did your dad have a stroke? Sergeant Major is saying trade white slaves for oil. Okay, you know what? Another brilliant plan. All right, we're gonna let's round up Antifa. Let's send in ICE. Okay, into Portland and Seattle. All right, Eugene. Except we're not there to round up illegals. We're there to actually just round up Antifa. All right, we're going to trade them as slaves to the Iranians in exchange for peace. And then they can just be used. They can just be pilloried in public, and you can let the society blow off steam by pelting them with tomatoes and rotten vegetables, or worse. Okay, brilliant idea. Who the fuck is Gary Lake?
We've got a troll who's just spamming us with this copy pasta garbage. I'll say this to the troll, and then I'm going to ignore this troll. Usually, I like to engage them a little bit for entertainment's sake, but you can see what this what this shitbird is doing here. He's gone on and copy pasted somebody's Twitter thread and thinks, oh well, this looks like a conservative show that talks about MAGA politics, so they must be the kind of people I hate. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop all this in there because I have no idea what the context of the program is, and so you're a shitbird that hasn't paid attention enough to actually understand what we're discussing. You're dropping partisan shit lib nonsense that's completely divorced from the current topic. So, troll better, shitwit.
We're fine with dissent, okay, but you can't just flood the chat, okay?
I love dissent. I just hate illiterate cunts.
That's bad faith.
I may not be a gynecologist, but I know what a pussy looks like when I see one.
Yeah, look, and we're even okay with trolling, but this is like the left can't meme, because in order to troll, you have to be able to meme, you have to be able to joke, you have to be able to be clever, and if you're literally just going to copy pasta a thing, then yeah, no, like come on. If you're going to call us names, at least call us names.
No, I'll give
that's enough of that, because the fact is, I appreciate the comments. It boosts the algorithm, and that all works. But listen, Carrie, I get what you're trying to do. You're bad at it. Try harder.
98% of Rumble is kind of MAGA bullshit, though. Okay, I would agree with you on that one. But anyway, that's all I'll give you. Okay.
We're at like an hour
here,
and 10 now.
hour and 10 minutes. Yep. Closing thoughts. Okay, I'll start. I don't like America not being in control of its foreign policy. I don't like America being jerked around, pressured, and forced into action by allies who have shown throughout history. Okay, and we could do a deep dive on that. Do not have our best interest at heart. Okay, who effectively use us as a golem to implement their will against their neighbors, who they simply cannot, who they cannot make peace with. Okay, or will not make peace with. All right, I would like. Make America Great Again means that we are in charge of our foreign policy and that we act in the interests that are America first. Okay. And I do not see that happening here. Okay. That's my closing thought.
Yeah, I actually agree with you 100% there. We've had a couple of back and forths throughout the episode this morning, but I'm with you. I want to see America first policy. Like one of the big things that we keep hearing that I keep seeing on Twitter. Oh, Donald Trump's going to cause all our oil prices to go up. Y'all, let's be very clear about this. If any action against any foreign entity causes American oil energy prices to increase at all, that is Biden's fault. It really is that simple. We were a net exporting energy independent state when Joe Biden was elected. And he changed that intentionally and immediately. It was one of the first things that he did. So if oil prices go up as a result of a strike on anyone, oil producer or otherwise, it is because Joe Biden sabotaged the American economy and stuck us in that situation where we are now. There has been some good movement since Trump took office, right? Hey, I'm a fan. I like the Donald. I'm not happy with the Iran-Israel situation. I think he's making a mistake there, broadly. With that exception, I think Donald Trump is the best and most effective president that we've had in my lifetime, if not in the last 100 years or more. I'd hate to see him wipe that out by making the mistake of pursuing this into a substantial foreign conflict. But if oil prices go up as a result of this engagement, that shit is entirely on the previous administration.
Okay, and then so I would say, as my closing thought is, don't panic yet. Donald Trump has a history of coming in hard and then backing off. Like this is the guy that dropped the Moab. You know, this is the guy that just straight up assassinated Soleimani, or I'm mispronouncing his name, but Donald Trump does seem to understand the exact line, and he'll walk right up to it. And he'll threaten to cross it. And I think if you look at the totality of Donald Trump's political career, Donald Trump threatens a whole lot more than he acts. He seems to act just enough for everybody to take his threats seriously. I think all this stuff with regime change is Donald being Donald, and I know sometimes we all hate him doing that, but I'm not surprised he bombed the nuclear sites. I would be surprised if maybe a few more bombs go back and forth between us. But if anything beyond that happens, that would shock me. I don't.
So I'm glad you brought up the Moab. And Sergeant Major, I'm going to address your comment as soon as I get through this. Glad you brought up the Moab, Cameron. Earlier, I mentioned, here's the best case scenario. Basically, we got to this point, we do it, and then we stop and make it clear, hey, we're done. Right? Hey, Israel, we are not your big stick anymore. You don't get to set U.S. foreign policy by taking aggressive actions against other countries. If you want to aggress, that's your problem. and you mentioned the Moab, Cameron, and that's what gives me hope that best case scenario is actually possible, because we've seen the Donald say, "Oh, whoa, hold up, wait a minute, you just made a mistake, and Daddy's going to spank you," and then he stops and says, "Okay, you've been spanked. Have you learned your lesson? You're going to stop escaping from our little prisons in the desert now, Taliban, Al Qaeda. You're done, right? We're good." That gives me some hope there. And then Sergeant Major asks, "How would you feel about Iran nuking a U.S. military base?" In that case,
well, that's then war.
Exactly.
Total war.
In that case, the only correct answer, a nuke on a U.S. military base, that is total population annihilation territory. That's no warning. The B-2 bomber gets there with the fat boy as soon as possible, and there are no survivors.
Yeah. So, one little closing thing I might want to add. I'm glad you brought up General Qasem Soleimani, Cameron, because, just to show you I'm not completely anti-interventionist, okay, completely isolationist. I was totally fine with the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, all right? He was directly responsible for the death of hundreds of my fellow soldiers in Iraq, all right? That shit was personal. I was happy that he was dead. So,
yep. Yeah, and I mean, in case I haven't made this clear, I'm totally comfortable with attacking Iran. What bothers me is Israel writing U.S. foreign policy.
Yeah, correct. And that's that is with the Donald. That's what you're going to get, unfortunately. Okay, and I knew this. And you should have known this going into it, okay? Maybe the
real problem there, Mario, is it's not that with the Donald this is what you're going to get. The problem, hang on. The problem is that it's with any elected official in the United States. That's what you get. It's part of it's part of the package. It's you can go into McDonald's and order any flavor of cheeseburger you want. It's all the same. It's all the same fake meat.
There's a little bit of slide on the scale with how much support and direct intervention you're going to get on Israel's behalf with different presidents and different administrations. But we knew this going into it, that voting for Trump for a third time meant Israel's going to get what we want. We just made the gambit that hopefully we can get what we want too out of it. Okay, that was the understanding, and it's in jeopardy now. Okay,
yeah.
So.
All right, guys, that's all I've got this morning. And I know Cameron needs to get his ass back to work. So.
No, he doesn't.
You fool, I never quit working. Why do you think I keep putting you guys on mute?
Fair enough. All right, guys.
You put us on mute? That's cute. That's cute.
Well, no. He muted his microphone, so we didn't have to listen to the noise.
Oh, I thought he was talking about the notorious thread. Okay.
No. That's entirely different. So, You guys, thanks for watching this morning. We love you.
Oh no, I don't have that on mute. I'm just not paying attention to it.
Cameron, if I may say this, Chris, if you do not do your duty, and you know what that is, the next deep dive might be on you. This is an actionable threat. Okay. Who would like a Saturday special where we do a complete character analysis of Cameron? Anyone interested in that? This could happen.
That's And on that note, thanks for today, guys. We love you. Post your R's, and we will see you tomorrow.
Always post your R's. Ciao. That's nice. Oh, in focus.
So there's only